The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everybody. It is Monday night. You are tuned into ARM Radio, and you are listening to Two Beards Talking. I am Daniel Sanders.
And I'm DonnieJ.
And we appreciate all of our listeners out there tuning in. As we do at the start of every show, we want to give a big shout out to the troops out there, deployed overseas, men and women, and serving on the home front. We appreciate everything you guys and gals are doing. Keep up the good work. Come home safe. Everybody here at home's rooting for you. So we're going to roll right into it. Two tragic weekends in a row for Alabama.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, but you know what? I think it's going to be okay, and I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, Tua.
Yeah,
Tagovailoa.
Tua. We, of course. Two weekends ago, Alabama lost their first game of the season. Their first loss in what's it been, 2 years, something like that. Yeah. First loss in like 2 seasons, and of course that was to number 1 ranked team LSU. And then this weekend against Mississippi State, starting quarterback Tua Tagovailoa suffered a season-ending injury.
Right, dislocated hip. They thought it was worse than what it was, but they managed to make an adjustment on the field, and they airlifted him to St. Vincent's Hospital in Birmingham, today they have surgery on his hip in Houston, Texas, and so we're waiting to find out how that turns out, how that's going. The thing is, everybody, the internet's abuzz with comments and commentaries regarding Coach Saban's decision to leave him in the game,
right?
With the 2-minute drill, but it actually was Tua's choice. Mm-hmm. They said afterwards that he wanted to stay and he wanted to run the 2-minute drill, and then probably second half they were going to start Mac Jones, which anybody who's seen Mac Jones play knows that this kid, he's got what it takes. But all kinds of, it really irritated me to see some of the comments and some of the things that were being said on social media. Fire Coach Saban, and come on, man, you got to get behind the team. You got to get behind.
Well, we were talking about that last weekend. That whole that hashtag Fire Saban was trending. I've not been on Twitter much lately, so I haven't seen a whole lot of what's going on. However, after what happened Saturday, I would not be surprised if hashtag Fire Saban is fire him back up again. Well,
here's the thing. If you're a Crimson Tide fan, this is not a time to point fingers and blame somebody. It's not like Coach Saban knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
If anything, he would have thought that it might have been an ankle sprain or something. That was a freak accident. That's just something that happens. It could happen to anybody. It could happen to any player.
Yeah.
And opinions. Everybody's got an opinion regarding the Crimson Tide about Tua's future in football, about the upcoming Iron Bowl, which, being an Auburn fan, I know that you're looking forward to. And Auburn fans are watching with sadistic glee, as to what happens to the Crimson Tide. Well, don't laugh yet. Here's my opinion on this. I think we're about to see the Crimson Tide rise to a level of greatness that legends are made of.
Right.
I said this last night on my radio show, and I'll say it again, and I mean it. Here's why. True greatness can only be realized in the face of adversity. Now, what is more adverse than losing your star quarterback with 2 games remaining in the regular season and the playoffs less than a month away? And the Iron Bowl. I mean, in Alabama, in the state of Alabama, the joke used to be you could lose every game but beat Auburn and you had a winning season.
Yeah, and vice versa.
And vice versa. Lose every game, beat Alabama, and Auburn has a winning season. But the reality is that that's just one game, but it is one very important game. But I think what's going to happen is I think the tide's going to rise. No pun intended. Mac Jones, have you seen? You've seen this kid play?
I have, yes.
I mean, he's great. He can throw long down. He can go long. He's great on the slant. He can run the ball. He is. What people fail to realize is that they're saying, "Oh my God, we got to go backup quarterback." What happened in the national championship game against Georgia?
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts wasn't getting the job done, so Saban pulls him out and puts in Tua, who starts slinging things left-handed through Georgia's defense haywire, and we won the national championship. Now, you're going to give Mac Jones an entire week to prepare for who is it? Western Carolina. The Catamounts.
The Catatonics.
Let's not make fun of them, okay? They could be an Appalachian state in disguise, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not tempting fate. But really, you give Mac Jones a week to compare to prepare against the Catamounts. All right. I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of trouble with that game. Auburn could be a different story.
Yes. Yeah. As I said. As I said earlier, if the Auburn team that was playing Georgia in the fourth quarter shows up to play against Alabama, Alabama's going to have their hands full.
It's going to be a long day.
It will be, absolutely. For those of you that don't know out there, as you were saying, the Iron Bowl is a pretty big thing, to put it mildly, here in the state of Alabama.
People get shot over the Alabama-Auburn game. People get fired from their jobs for rooting for the wrong person. Houses are divided on this day between
families have been broken up. Husbands and wives have gotten divorced. It is pure pandemonium.
Kids have been disowned from the family because I mean, you think I'm not joking. I mean,
no, we are being dead serious.
There was actually years ago. It's been many years, but there was actually someone showed me an employment application, and the last question was, are you an Alabama Crimson Tide or an Auburn Tiger fan? That was a question on an employment application. I mean, it couldn't have been any worse if you'd have said, "How old are you?" Or yeah, a very improper question, but not in the state of Alabama because that determines whether or not you got the job.
Absolutely, 2
qualified applicants, and one's for Alabama, and the boss is a Crimson Tide fan. Guess who's getting the job? I mean, it's serious football in this state.
Absolutely, the very first car sales job that I had. I was working for DeVan Lowe Buick GMC in Fort Payne, Alabama. And the general manager of the store played football for Alabama back in the 80s. I don't think he ever got any real serious game time, but he was part of the team. He was active on the roster and so on and so forth. He brought me on. And I remember very first Saturday during college football season, I wore an Auburn polo to work. And he didn't he didn't really chastise me. He didn't berate me or anything like that. But he pulled me off to the side and he said, I'm not hating on you because I went to Alabama and you're an Auburn fan, but around here, people will take note of that, and there are people that will decide not to buy a vehicle from you.
Exactly.
Because you're wearing an Auburn shirt. And I turned around and I hit him back with, well, on the flip side of that coin, there's just as many people that will decide to buy a vehicle from me because I'm wearing an Auburn shirt.
Well, it's okay. The seriousness, we'll get to politics just briefly. Running for the Senate seat is former Auburn head coach Tommy Tuberville.
Yes.
And his name recognition is what's going. If he wins, is what's going to get him is going to get him the seat because everybody recognizes him, and you got half of the state that's going to vote for him because he was an Auburn head coach.
And well, not even that. When I met Tommy face to face before we got him on the show, I remember I saw a lot of people that they showed up. They showed up to meet former Auburn head coach Tommy Tuberville, and they're wearing Alabama shirts.
Right.
And I remember a lot of them saying, you may have been the coach at Auburn University, and I might be an Alabama fan, but you got my vote.
Exactly. And it's in this state, Alabama-Auburn football is serious business.
It is.
Now back to what we were talking about with the upcoming with the Iron Bowl. We're not going to have a problem with I don't think we're going to have a problem with the Catamounts. That said, then we've got Auburn, and depending on the Auburn team that shows up, it could be a long day. Because it's at Jordan-Hare Stadium this year, is it not?
It is.
It is. It could be a very long day. But if we dispatch the Catamounts and the Auburn Tigers, then it kind of falls as to what happens to the other the top three teams, because Alabama fell to number 5 this week simply because Tua got injured. And I think that in itself is a crock of BS. We won our game. We won it 38-7. But then we fall one place because our quarterback gets injured. I mean, it's almost as if, we're saying we got to have faith in Mac Jones. We got to get behind Mac Jones. But now we've got the AP poll and we've got the coaches poll that are dropping Alabama in the rankings simply because Tua got hurt, and now we got to go with the backup quarterback, Mac Jones.
Right.
Mac Jones beat both Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts in the A-Day games in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
This kid is good. This kid can play.
Yeah, and I always give credit where credit's due. Like I said, Nick Saban is a hell of a football coach. He is one of the best football coaches in college football. Alabama has one of the strongest. What's the word I'm thinking? They've got probably the strongest group of recruiters I have ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
But they focus on offense and defense, and they're leaving out a very key portion of the team.
Special teams.
Yes.
We need a kicker. That's been a problem for a couple of years now. I think we were talking about this earlier, I think the last really great kicker that we had was Van Tiffin, not Lee Tiffin, his son, but Van Tiffin back in 1984, who beat Auburn with 4 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
Like a 48-yard field goal. All that said, there's players on this Crimson Tide team that 129 other Division I teams would kill to have wearing their uniform and on their roster. Alabama's second string would probably start on most of those rosters.
Oh, yeah.
So for us to drop to number 5 in the polls based on one person's injury, it's one person. Yes, it's the star quarterback. Yeah, he's the inspiration. He's a leader. But it's one person. And with a team that's got the depth that the Tide has, when one person falls, another one steps up.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts didn't get the job done. Tua stepped in. Tua gets hurt. Mac Jones steps up. Mac Jones, something happens to him. We got Tua's brother in the background. We don't have any shortage of players that can step up and fill positions.
Yeah. And, I used to just because I'm an Auburn fan and I gotta have something, all of these Alabama fans, for one, they don't really know how this whole national championship thing works. They talk about how they have more national championships than any other team in college football. Okay, well, if we're talking about just from, I think, what it was, the 1960s or something, when they started the BCS or whatever, back during the Bear Bryant days,
right,
then, yeah. But the problem is they're taking championships that occurred before that.
1939 up, yeah.
And okay, well, if you're going to include those, then you have to include the schools that have national championships from that time period as well, too. And now we're talking about, I think, Yale. Yes, Yale.
Yes, Yale.
Has like 25, 26 national titles. We're not talking BCS national. We're just talking about college football national championships.
Okay, well, let's eliminate all those. Let's just say that we don't use the ones from 1939. Let's say that we start in the 60s era, in the Bear Bryant era, if you will. Let's say that we start with Bart Starr. We start with Joe Namath in that era. Okay, even then, if we just start there, we've still got more national championships than most other teams have.
Yes, but the point that I was getting at, and I'm kind of doing it in a roundabout way, talking about how good Alabama is.
Here it comes.
One thing I always bring up. Well, Auburn's got more Heisman trophies. Well, the thing about the Heisman Trophy is an individual award,
and it's also a curse.
It is, but the Heisman Trophy is an individual award. The Auburn Tigers have 3 noted Heisman Trophy recipients, and that is Pat Sullivan, Bo Jackson, and Cam Newton.
Yes.
Alabama now has 2.
Mark Ingram,
and it was a quarterback.
I should know this. Mark Ingram.
Do.
Really, my mind just went blank. I mean, all I can think of is
who it is irrelevant. But the point that I was getting at is Alabama does not teach in football. Alabama does not teach individuality. They teach team.
Right.
You can't have Tua Tagovailoa doing a Cam Newton carrying the entire team to a national championship.
No.
You can't have any of that. That's why I say their recruiting is so strong. They don't rely on 1-star quarterback and then, 3-star recruit from bumfucked Egypt. They've got, like you said, their second and third string could be starters at any other school in the country.
They have depth. They have great depth, and any one player can step up and take the place of a player that falls. And that's and their faith is another thing. I mean, these guys, they live, eat, breathe. Not just their faith in God, but their faith in one another on the team. Their faith in their coaches. The character and the integrity of the Crimson Tide team. Now, a lot of haters. There's a lot of haters on the Crimson Tide, and what really irritated me was some of the. I'm not even going to mention the site because I'm not even part of it anymore. But there was one Facebook site where this guy was just. He was literally happy and laughing that Tua Tagovailoa was injured. And and he was an Auburn fan. And other Auburn fans were jumping to Tua's defense and saying, you need to shut the hell up. That's not funny. You don't make fun of a player that's injured. You don't.
No.
You just don't do that. That's just not done. And this guy was. I think he got banned from Facebook. They put him in Facebook jail he can't post it for until like December or something.
Unless it's Colin Kaepernick.
Well, yeah. But now you just mentioned Cam Newton or Scam Newton a minute ago.
Come on now.
Or as he's known in the NFL, Medea. Cam's great. And when they played Oregon for the national championship, I was cheering for Auburn.
Well, of course, because if Auburn wins the national championship, Alabama gets a piece of that pie.
Pretty much. But and last weekend, I was cheering for Auburn against Georgia. I wanted them to, it was they at the fourth quarter. If they'd have played the entire game like they played the fourth quarter, it'd have been a different outcome.
Well, and I said this mostly in jest. I don't truly believe this, but part of me thinks this could actually be a possibility. There were, especially in the fourth quarter, a lot of calls that went in Georgia's favor that really should not have, and a lot of calls that didn't get made that went in Georgia's favor. On the onside kick, Auburn recovered the onside kick, and they gave the ball to Georgia on the grounds that a defender made contact with a Georgia player before the ball traveled 10 yards. Now, I've heard you cannot touch the ball before it travels 10 yards.
But not another player.
But I have never, in all of my years watching football, and I've seen it happen plenty of times.
Right.
Players making contact before the ball has traveled 10 yards.
It's kind of like traveling in the NBA. There was a commercial years ago that pretty much summed it up. It said, traveling. 9,352 instances of traveling this season. It was called 3 times. Nobody calls traveling in the NBA. Everybody travels, right? 2, 3 steps, whatever. It's the same thing. That's one of those. That's one of those rules that is rarely enforced. So when it is enforced, you go, how much did that ref get paid? I mean, because it's a rule.
There was that. And then there was a play. Auburn was driving through a sideline pass, and they had to go back and review it. The receiver, first thing they were looking at was whether or not the receiver was inbounds when he caught the ball.
Right. I was watching that play.
His toe came down inbounds.
Inbounds.
Then his heel came down on the line out of bounds.
But the toe was inbounds.
The toe was inbounds, yes. And then they were looking at whether or not he maintained possession. Now, I was listening to the game on the radio at this point, so I was not able to actually see it.
I was in the studio of the radio station watching the game, actually.
Yeah, I was listening to the play-by-play on the radio, and they were watching the replay on the Jumbotron at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and the broadcasters in the radio booth, they know what they're talking about. That's why they're broadcasting.
Right.
Yes, his toe was down before his heel came down out of bounds, so he's in bounds. Now they're looking at, did he maintain possession of the ball? Well, he's not juggling it around.
Right.
He's not moving it to another hand. He brought it in, and then he went down out of bounds. And then the official comes back after reviewing the play. The ruling on the field is overturned. It was ruled a catch, and then they came back and overturned it and said it was incomplete, that he did not maintain possession.
Now, here's the thing about overturning a call on the field. You've got to have
inconclusive evidence.
Incontrovertible evidence.
Yes.
You've got to have evidence that's just it's out there. It's there. You see it. It's plain, and it's obvious.
Yeah.
Failing that, the ruling on the field
stands.
Even if it's faulty, it stands.
Yes.
It's like it's kind of like in Major League Baseball, calling somebody safe.
Yeah.
Unless there's just something that's just egregious, the ruling on the field stands.
Yeah.
Well, what did they see that was so egregious that made them overturn the call?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because even the broadcasters in the booth could not figure out what the officials were looking at that gave them enough evidence to overturn the play.
Well, This all goes back, and I shouldn't say this, but a few weeks ago there was I forget which game it was, but it was an Alabama game, and there were a lot of calls that were made in favor of Alabama.
Yeah.
Of course, who was it? I forget who it was we played. We beat them by like 30-something points, so it's not like it was really close. But there were a lot of calls that went Alabama's way, and there was a photo of Saban as he's walking across the field, and he had shook the hand of one of the refs.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you see the caption?
I saw. I know the game you're talking about. I actually saw a GIF of this.
The caption said, "No need to count it. It's all there."
Yeah. The GIF that I saw. Actually, the GIF that I saw was the official spots the ball on the ground, stands up, looks across the field, then bends back down, picks the ball up, and moves it like half a yard closer towards the towards the direction of play. And right as he's doing that, Nick Saban is walking behind him, and this animated bag of money falls out of Nick Saban's pocket and right next to the official's foot.
And of course, none of this happens. I mean, in all reality, I mean, we can kid around and joke about it all day long, but in all reality, I don't believe I don't believe in this day and age there's too many whistleblowers, too many people would make it known that a ref was accepting money.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. But that said, you sometimes wonder, okay, this official, where was he born?
Yeah.
Where did he go to college? You know?
Well, the next thing that happened,
he might not have got paid, but maybe he's got a bias.
The next real big thing that happened, and this was the nail in the coffin for Auburn. It was Auburn's final drive. I can't remember. I think it was 3rd and 10. And Auburn, Bo Nix is rolling out to throw the ball, and the defender grabs hold of his face mask. And there was no
Nothing.
flag, no
Yes,
play.
yes.
No flag, no call. Now, it's my understanding that any time the quarterback drops back to pass, an official is supposed to have eyes on the quarterback at all times
Right.
until he releases the ball.
Right.
So
Somebody wasn't watching.
somebody wasn't watching or somebody just didn't care.
Well, there's so many things that you've got to watch. You've got to watch for, is he in the pocket? Is it intentional grounding?
Yeah.
Was he throwing it in the direction of a receiver? All kinds of different things in that one instance, which is why there's a ref watching the quarterback.
Right.
So how do you not see a face mask grab?
Exactly.
Unless you just didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
You know? And at this level, with this much on the line, I mean, most people don't realize, the average person that watches a game does not realize the money that goes into these programs. Someone once said, why would a program, for example, like Western Carolina University Catamounts, okay? Most people have never heard of the Catamounts, you know. They're kind of like App State or my alma mater, Coastal Carolina University. A few years ago, Coastal played Georgia. And people said, why? Why are we doing that? Because the score was like Georgia 63, Coastal Carolina. I think we might have scored 3 points. We might have made a field goal. It was like 63-3. It was a
blowout.
Terrible. They had the band suiting up by the fourth quarter and playing. We were playing. It was Coastal Carolina versus the Georgia band. By the fourth quarter, and it was a drubbing. And people said, why do they put themselves in that kind of position? Why do they do that to themselves? I can give you about 3 million reasons why.
Yeah.
We get paid. These programs, these programs like App State, like the Catamounts, or like Coastal, they get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what happens is you get your ass beat enough, you make enough money, you put money back in that program, then you have an Appalachian State who comes up and beats Michigan.
Or a Jacksonville State.
That almost beats Auburn.
That takes Auburn into overtime.
Exactly. You pour enough money in these programs, you keep getting beat, but you keep getting paid when you get beat.
Yeah.
And then the amount of money that goes into these programs is obscene amounts of money. And when you get to the level of the Crimson Tide, of the Georgia Bulldogs, of the Auburn Tigers, of LSU, yeah, I said that, LSU. But when you get to that level, obscene amounts of cash.
Yeah. And, in layman's terms, WCU talking to Alabama, we're going to charge you $2.5 million to beat up on us for 60 minutes.
Yes.
That's, you got to have your little warm-up game to get ready for Auburn. We need the money.
We need the money. So if you want to beat up on us for 60 minutes, that's going to cost you $3.5 million. And Alabama says, okay, well, do you have change for this? I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Can you break a $5 million?
Really, exactly. And what happens is over a period of time, as I was just saying, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but maybe five years down the road.
10 years.
10 years down the road, enough money gets funneled by getting your ass beat by a Georgia, an Alabama, or an LSU, and the next thing you know,
you can invest money into recruiting, and now you've got a couple of 4-stars and maybe a 5-star just because of the fact that he's local.
And then on any given Saturday, somebody shows up and takes you for granted, and you pull an App State Michigan game, which I'll always go back to that one because, I mean, it shocked the whole world. People were like, who? Michigan got beat by who?
Yeah.
Yeah, Appalachian State. And now the funny thing is, and App State beat South Carolina this year.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing about Appalachian State. Now, I have some friends who have children that go there. Nobody takes them for granted anymore. Yes, they're not an Alabama or a Georgia. However, people give them a little bit more respect now because they go, yeah, we're playing Appalachian State, but we're playing Appalachian State.
Yeah.
So let's prepare. Let's put some points up on the board quickly, and let's put them away because we don't want to give them the chance to do to us what they did to Michigan and South Carolina.
And South Carolina, absolutely. But yeah, that's... we got on a real big rabbit trail there because I'm doubling back to the Iron Bowl now.
Sorry about that.
No, that's good. The kick six Iron Bowl.
Oh, why do we have to talk about
Well,
that?
we have to talk about that because
Do we have to?
I was working at the car dealership where the general manager played ball for Alabama, and I was the only Auburn fan there. We knew for a fact it was Iron Bowl Saturday. Nobody was coming out car shopping.
No.
We broke out the grill. We had a 80-inch old school projection TV.
In other words, you pretended to work and actually you grilled and watched the game that day.
Pretty much, yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. We had this old school 80-inch Mitsubishi projection TV on the showroom that, 20 years ago somebody traded in for a car. And that's what we watched the game on. So, me being the only Auburn fan, of course I had to show class. Everybody else, all the Alabama fans,
Albeit low class.
Alabama would move the ball 6 inches, and the finance manager would be hooping and hollering, "Yeah, that's how it's done. That's Alabama football right there." And Auburn would get a first down, and all right, good job, guys, good job. And the finance manager would look at me and go, "Daniel, you're fired."
Well, here's this game is a massively important game. I wanted to point out something that maybe some people, maybe some listeners don't realize is you were talking about the guy who played for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't like a star or anything like that.
Right.
But here's what happens when you play for the Crimson Tide or when you play for Auburn in the state of Alabama. Maybe you did not start. You might have never seen a rep. You might have never played a minute of a game, but you were on the team. You were on the team for 4 years. You dressed out. You were cannon fodder. You got beat up on by the start. You did your job. You gave 110%. At the end of your 4 years, even if you're not a scholarship, if you're a walk-on or whatever, if you stay with the team at the end of your 4 years, and this has been done. This was done by Bear Bryant. I'm sure it was done by Shook Jordan, as well as Tommy Tuberville, as well as Pat Dye. When you're done and your 4 years are up and you've graduated, maybe you didn't ever see a snap in a game. What happens is Coach Saban, or back in the day, Coach Paul Bear Bryant, would pick up the phone and, okay, Daniel, what do you want to do? Well, my major is finance, and I'd like to get I'm gonna make a phone call. Bear Bryant picks up the phone and calls somebody who's a Wall Street broker, literally in Wall Street. Hey, this is Coach Paul Bear Bryant. Coach, how's it going? Yeah, I got a young man right here that has given me his all. He's put out 110% for 4 years for me, and he's graduating, and we're going to be sad to see him go. But we're glad that he's moving on. And I was wondering if you could possibly find a position. Why, absolutely. They'll be more than happy to hire a former member of the Crimson Tide upon the recommendation of a Bear Bryant or Nick Saban or Gus Malzahn or a Tommy Tuberville. Simply because you put forth 110%. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, faith and integrity that people on Auburn, people on Alabama, maybe not LSU so much, but people on these teams, the integrity and the character that these players have, it goes back to their faith in God. It goes back to their faith in each other, their faith in their coaches, and it permeates the whole team, from the starters on down to the fourth string, the guy who never gets off the bench, who doesn't even get to drink the Gatorade. All of these people benefit from being in this program.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what we started out with. I think we're about to see a level of greatness from the Crimson Tide that is the stuff legends are made of, simply because of all the adversity. We've lost our quarterback. Now we've got the backup coming in. We're being dropped in the polls like a hot potato. And I think people have written us off a little too soon.
Well,
and it's a good thing. It's a good thing, and this is why. I've always said, when we start out the season ranked number 1, we don't lose a game. We get about 3 games from the end of the season, and we get complacent. And that's when we get our butts beat, or we lose barely, whatever, and then everything goes to hell. Okay? When you lose that one game, you realize we did something wrong. We got complacent. Now everybody's writing us off. Now people's talking crap about us. Now we're mad. Now we're hungry. Now we got something to prove. And that's what's happened now. Tua's out. Everybody's writing us off. They dropped us in the polls simply by virtue of losing our star quarterback. And they're already saying, that the Iron Bowl's I saw posts, congratulations on winning the Iron Bowl. The damn game's not for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But they're already saying Auburn's going to win. And you very well may win. But I wouldn't put the W on the board just yet.
Oh, no, not at all. So, this is, if you haven't seen it yet, this is the current layout of the polls. So this is your top 4 right now: LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia. Alabama's falling in at number 5 right now. Now, anything could happen.
True.
There's 3 weeks left in the season. For most teams, there's 2 games left on their schedule. Ohio State could lose between now and then. Clemson could lose. LSU could lose. And Alabama's right back in it.
Well, that's what I said earlier on my radio show this evening. Is if let's just postulate here for a minute. Let's say the top 3, the unbeatens, lose a game each. Then all of a sudden, everybody's equal again because everybody's a one-loss team.
Yep.
Now we've got 5 one-loss teams. So who's on the outside looking in then? Then it goes back, are you going to hold it against us because we've lost Tua Tagovailoa? What if Mac Jones steps up and starts kicking ass? Now Alabama is again in the playoff picture, and we should move up. I'm really curious, and I wonder how. I mean, I've seen some literature about how they make the decisions, but the committee, I'm wondering what all goes into their decision. What factors, what equation do they use to determine who's on the outside looking in and who's in the catbird seat, who's the top 4?
I don't know, but since you brought that up, as an Alabama fan, I'm going to ask you this. So, Alabama the SEC championship has already been determined. LSU and Georgia are playing for the SEC championship. Now, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, I think? Nick Saban was at a conference, and I'm paraphrasing what he said. Any team that does not play for their conference championship should not be eligible to play for the national title. Your thoughts?
My thoughts, he shouldn't have said that, number one. I don't like to chastise Coach Saban, but St. Nick probably shouldn't have said that. That said, there is merit to what he says. Okay, but again, we've got to just because you play for your conference championship. LSU is unbeaten, right? Okay, Georgia
is a one-loss team.
Is a one-loss team. Okay, Alabama is a one-loss team. All right, so let's switch it around. Now it's a one-loss Alabama team playing LSU for the SEC championship. I don't think I have to disagree respectfully with Coach Saban in that just because you don't win your conference championship, you shouldn't be in the international. You shouldn't be in the contention.
Right.
That was obviously said as somebody on the outside looking in.
Well, I think he was at the time. I think he was referring to Ohio State.
Yes.
Ohio State not winning their conference, but still being eligible to play for the national championship.
Right.
And I've said for the longest time, and this was back during the BCS time, I did not like the way they did the BCS.
No, the BCS was bullshit.
Yes,
plain and simple.
And now I don't really like the way they do the college football playoff. I don't think 4 teams is enough.
No, you're exactly right, and I agree with you completely on that. I think that the playoffs is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely, yes.
It's a hell of a lot better than the rankings, or depending on AP and coaches poll and all this other crap. The what was it? The computer model or some crap like that. All these points. Yeah, no. Even though Alabama often came out ahead in those, I still disagreed with it. I think the 4-team playoff is a step in the right direction, but I think it needs to be 8. Maybe
8 at the
more.
very minimum. I'm saying maybe 12.
But then you were talking about a longer season. Now we're talking about, okay, so let's say we've got 12 teams, okay? So in a playoff situation, playoff picture. Mm-hmm. So now we've got we play this weekend, and now we're down to 6. We play the next weekend, and now we're down to what? It's down to, we've got to lengthen the season. We've got to make the season longer.
Yeah.
And now we get into an NFL type situation where you added teams, but now you've got to add weeks to the schedule, and now we're into February before the Super Bowl.
Well, with a 12-team playoff, you've got 6 and 6, and that's 3 weeks.
Okay.
So.
But now we still got the regular season. The regular season doesn't end for 2 more weeks. The end of November ends the regular season. Mm-hmm. Okay, Auburn is the last game. Alabama-Auburn is the last game on the schedule, and that's that way for everybody. Now, I think it's pretty much everybody. That's the end of the season. But now we're in December, which is when usually you have all the bowl games.
Right.
But now we're not having bowl games. We're having playoff games.
Well,
or the playoff game is going to be the bowl games. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You've got your first week. You're going to have your Music City Bowl, your Toilet Bowl.
But now then what we've got to do is we've got to decide which one of these bowl games makes you a national championship contender. Fiesta Bowl, absolutely. Sugar Bowl, probably.
Well, no. You're now you're looking at it at BCS standpoint. It's still a playoff,
right?
Just like in the NFL, you have your playoff games, and then your semifinals, and then your conference finals, and then the Super Bowl.
Right.
So
we're saying SEC championship, Big Ten championship.
Well, I'm saying whichever teams are eligible for the playoffs, your top 12 teams, they're the ones that are in the playoffs.
Well, how about this then? How about every conference, the winner of the conference plays another conference? But now how do you do this?
Well, the problem with that is
you're going to put a Pac-12 against an SEC? Really?
Well, you've got that, but the other thing you've got to look at, the independent conference, the independent,
right.
Like Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
They don't play for a conference; they're an independent.
Right.
And then all of your smaller, your Sun Belts, your MACs, all of those schools,
your academies, your Naval Academy, your West Point. You've got your Yale, your Harvard.
Yeah.
Even we talked about that earlier. But everybody, all of a sudden, everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a shot at the title.
Yeah.
Everybody can't get a shot at the title.
No, and that's why I'm saying, the top 12 teams, you extend the season 3 weeks, 4 weeks max. You do your playoff games, you get down to the semifinals, you take a week off to give your last 2 teams a break and warm-up time and all that stuff, and then you play your national championship, your Super Bowl, your Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, your whatever bowl you want to call it, your dog bowl, I don't care. But extend it. 4 teams is not enough at all. 4 teams is not enough at all. I don't agree with that. And I'm not saying that because, now Auburn might have a shot to play for a national title because I won't say most times, but every other year I'd say at least, Auburn usually finishes within the top 15. And there's a good possibility that they could be 12, 11 by the time the playoffs roll around. I'm not saying that because I'm an Auburn fan. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you are.
Well, no. It could be anything. Michigan's sitting at number 12 right now. So, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of it gives other teams that are good enough to compete and win the national championship. It gives those teams the opportunity to compete.
Well, as what's going on right now, you would have a one-loss, number 5 ranked Alabama team, and then who's behind Alabama? After Alabama, it's
Oregon, and then depending upon if you're looking at AP or coaches, it's either going to be Utah or Oklahoma.
You really can't. Can you really tell me that an Oklahoma or that an Oregon doesn't belong in a playoff picture?
No, not at all.
Exactly. They played. And some of these, Alabama's been accused of having a cupcake schedule this year, and
they have.
It was a little bit light. Yeah, it was. But then again, look at Clemson. Who has Clemson really played this year?
Well, from the outside looking in as SEC fans, Clemson had a cupcake schedule, yes. But for Clemson, maybe not so much.
Well, by the same token, we played. LSU was not, that was a game. Yeah, LSU, I hate them.
That was Alabama's only game.
Pretty much. But then there's the toughness of the schedules, and expanding the picture, like you said, would give the ones on the outside looking in a shot at it, a shot at the title. And by virtue of that, it's like right now, from what I understand, the committee looks at the toughness of a schedule as to whether or not you get a shot you get one of the top 4 spots.
Well, strength of schedule plays into your ranking anyways.
Right.
And, what was last year or 2 years ago, Central Florida, they were whooping and hollering and bragging because they finished their season undefeated and they were claiming national champion status.
Right.
Even though Alabama won the national.
Yeah.
And now, granted, who does UCF play?
I don't even know who UCF plays.
I don't even know what conference they're in, to be honest. But, I mean...
But they were undefeated.
Yeah, they were. And I think, depending... if you're a school like UCF and you go undefeated and you've had at least 2 games where you played a team like Clemson or a team like Tennessee... And I'm going to say Tennessee because even though they're kind of like the Special Olympics of the SEC, they are still the SEC. They are still the SEC.
Yes.
So if you're a UCF team and you go
or
undefeated,
a Vanderbilt or
and you go undefeated and you've had at least 2 schools that people can say, hey, I know what conference they're from. Hey, they're from the SEC conference. Okay, yeah, we're going to put you in a number 12 slot, and we're going to give you a shot. You want to talk trash about how you went undefeated and you can beat anybody, we're going to give you your shot. Now you're going to play Clemson. Now you're going to play Alabama. Now you're going to play LSU.
Let's see what happens.
Exactly.
Right.
And
you beat everybody. You're UCF, and you beat everybody in your conference, and now you're playing LSU.
Yeah.
And good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly. And then, who knows? We might.
Well, that's what happens in the NCAA
the March Madness.
March Madness, exactly. You've got the Cinderella teams. You've got 62 teams, and I've always said that I think that we couldn't do it that way, of course, with football. But I've always said that that's a great model because on like a Wednesday or Thursday night, there's like 2 teams at play.
Yeah.
They're like the very bottom of the 60. Instead of 62, it's like 64 or 66 or something. And they're like the last 2 teams. All right. But what happens is you've got like an unheard of team. It used to be unheard of, the Wichita Shockers.
Yeah.
Okay. Which shocked some people a few years ago by making it to the Sweet 16. But you've got a team like that plays. A Duke or a Kentucky, and the chances of them winning. I mean, they're ranked number 62, and they're playing a number 1. But if they beat the number 1, they advance.
Yeah.
Cinderella gets to go to the dance, and I think that's the kind of shot that should be given in college football.
Yeah, absolutely, and one of the biggest arguments that I hear from the opponents of this idea, well, it cuts into basketball season. Well, guess what? The fucking World Series cuts into football season. I don't watch baseball. I don't give 2 flying fucks if the Red Sox win the Worlds. I don't even know who won the World Series this year. I don't care. I don't watch baseball. I know that makes me un-American because baseball is. I went to a live baseball game when I was like 8 years old. It was the Braves, and this was back when it wasn't the Miami Marlins. It was the Florida Marlins.
Right.
It was in 1997, the very first year Atlanta played at Turner Field.
Yep.
And oh my God, I used to love watching baseball on TV. You had the commentary, you had all the different camera angles.
Right.
You go out to Turner Field. For one, If it rains in the morning, and this was in July too, if it rains in the morning in Atlanta and by 12 o'clock the sun is out, don't go outside.
It's a sauna.
It is.
Yeah.
And Turner Field was a sauna. I probably lost about 20 pounds sitting inside of that field that day.
Just imagine if you're down there on the diamond.
Oh, yeah. And we were lower level first baselines. We had awesome seats. Awesome seats. But I was so fucking bored because, like I said, at home I get the commentary, I get all the different camera angles, sitting there on the first baseline, and all you hear is, now batting, number. And the coolest part of that game was we were just a few rows over from the Braves bullpen, and Dad takes me over there, and we're watching Greg Maddux and Mark Wohlers, and yes,
Maddux on the mound. Yep.
The heyday of Atlanta Braves pitching.
Avery, Maddux, Smoltz. Yep.
And you know, they're just playing catch with the catchers. Like they're not working on pitches. They're just warming their shoulders up, getting loosened up, and talking to us like we're next door neighbors. That was the best part of that entire game. The rest of the game fucking sucked.
That's the boys of summer.
Yeah. We left at the top of the 7th. It was, for one, the Braves were losing, and it was a god-awful experience. I have not watched a baseball game since.
Well, I remember the 1984 Atlanta Braves, and all they had was Dale Murphy and Bob Horner, I think it was. They had two good players. And with the purchase of over $50 of groceries at any Atlanta area Kroger, you got 2 free Braves tickets. I'm not kidding. If you bought more than $50 worth of groceries, they'd give you 2 free Atlanta Braves tickets to go see the Braves. This is 1984.
Couldn't you go up to Will Call and buy tickets for like $20 a piece?
Pretty much. They were giving you buy groceries and we'll give you Braves tickets. You know, that was before they were. You know what they are now.
Yeah,
we've gone way down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely, we have, and it's good. It's good. You know.
You know what we haven't talked about this whole show?
The whistleblower?
Politics, yes. And I'm strangely comfortable with that for one week.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've enjoyed this. Yeah, I don't give 2 shits if the college football playoff cuts into the first month of basketball or first 2 months of basketball. I don't care.
As Miranda Lambert says in the country song, it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to hurt any viewing. No one's going to lose any money, and it's not going to change anything.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing about it. If you want to, if you're a betting person and you're betting on sports,
you're going to be watching whatever that game is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're more than likely going to be betting on the college football playoff than you are, game 5 of
the World Series.
Game 5. Well, we're past the World Series. Now we're into December. So you're, game 5 or 6 of this school's freaking college basketball schedule. You're not betting on basketball until February, March when
Madness, yeah.
When basketball starts. I won't say getting good because I hate basketball too.
Jesus, you hate baseball and basketball. Lord.
Well, we already know why I hate baseball.
Right.
I hate basketball because I'm short and white.
Okay, well, there is that. I love basketball simply because it's the NCAA March Madness is it's my favorite tournament in all of sports. But I love it because these are kids that are playing. They kind of remind me of minor league baseball. And bear with me here with this comparison. In minor league baseball, these kids are playing. Those guys out there in AAA, AA. They're playing for love of the game. They're in the bus leagues, $300, $500 a week. They ride buses everywhere. They're playing for a chance to go to the show. In college basketball, these kids are putting it all out there for a chance of going pro.
Yeah.
All right. And it's inherently more fair. It's long schedule. It's inherently more fair than a lot of the other programs, in my opinion. That's just
right.
my opinion. But they're playing for a chance to go to the pros. Well, much the same way that college football is too. But I love it on the college level, and once you get to the pros, I'm bored as hell.
Well, that's because once you get to the pros, they're not playing for love of the game. They're playing for money.
Love of the money, yes.
Yes.
And that goes to another thing that I was talking to a friend of mine about the other day. Coach Saban, they said, he coached for the Dolphins.
Right.
I said, yeah, and he will never coach pro again. And they're like, why? I said, because here's why. When you coach in the pros, you have to deal with a player who's got an ego, who also has a contract, and also has an agent. And his contract states that he starts every game, blah, blah, and you can't bench him, and you can't do this, and blah, 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 blah. And that hamstrings a coach.
Yeah.
Nick Saban can bench the hell out of whoever he wants to. He can bring up whoever he wants to. Now he's ultimately responsible for his decisions, as he was this past Saturday, okay? But he can do what he wants to do. He can coach. He can run. This is his show, and he can run it how he wants to. And when he's given that free reign, what you see is the dynasty that is the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's... Yeah, what you said.
What he said.
So we're running out of time, so we're going to start wrapping things up here. Don't forget to go on Facebook, like us, follow us, interact with us. Let us know what you think. Tell us your predictions for the outcome of the college football playoffs. I want to know, is LSU going to be there? Is it going to be LSU and Alabama playing for the college football national championship?
I'm thinking it's going to be LSU and Alabama again.
Is it going to be half the nation bitching because 2 SEC teams are playing for the national championship again?
Yes.
Is everybody going to be hating on the SEC? Probably. They always do.
Well, when you're on when you're the king of the mountain, everybody's trying to knock you off. Everybody hates you. So.
Yep. When you're the king, everybody wants your crown.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah. Go on Facebook, Two Beards Talking.
And next week we'll get back to politics, possibly.
Maybe. Hopefully by next week we'll be wrapped up with this impeachment shit.
I wouldn't count on that. Well, I'm not going to get into that. I got my own theory on that. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe. So we'll save that for next week. But Facebook, Two Beards Talking. Like us, follow us, interact with us. If you hate us, tell us.
Yes.
I mean, I don't care, but, tell us anyway. We just want to know that you're out there listening to us. So, again, big shout-out to the and before I get into that, don't forget Tuesday nights, tune in here to Armed Radio and listen to my show with Rod Burks, 2AT, Second Amendment Talk. We've got some we're going to be continuing our discussion from last week about the Supreme Court's decision to block Remington's appeal and allowing the families of the Sandy Hook victims to sue Remington. So we'll be continuing on with that. Again, big shout out to the troops out there. We appreciate everything you ladies and gentlemen are doing out there deployed overseas and here on the home front. Come home safe. We're all rooting for you here back home. This has been Two Beards Talking right here on Armed Radio. I'm Daniel Sanders.
I'm DonnieJ.
Thanks for listening, everybody.